If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I bring you the Stat Show with a different guest. This week, returning for his fourth or fifth time, is Rob Smith, who is the Group MD of Hunters, Whitegates and Northwood, because they're all part of the TPFG group. We'll come to Rob in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, let's be honest, the British are obsessed with the property market. And whenever the Land Registry throw out any stats, everyone's all over it in the newspapers. But their stats from 9 or 10 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at sales from 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at the property market and house prices from last week. So we've got our finger on the pulse. So if you want an inside track on what's happening in the property market, then buckle up, listen in, and we'll see how we go. Our show lasts about 1 hour. The first half of the show is where we look at the property market, the UK property market, and myself and Rob will be analysing it in detail and what it means to both agents and homeowners and landlords. The second half of the show will be focusing on a town or a city. This week we are going to the beautiful town of Stockport, which is a suburban town of Manchester. We've got a huge love for Stockport, know it really, really well. Now, if you're not from Stockport, you might think to yourself, well, there's no point in watching that. If you're an agent that suffers from overvaluing or cheap fees from your competitors, we're going to be using a bit of kit that proves, as long as you are as good as you think you are, that you're a better agent. So even though we won't be talking about Stockport, we'll do watch that element of the show. And if your stats follow up, you could also have that bit of kit and you could prove to your vendors that the cheap fee agent or the overvaluing agent are absolutely rubbish and you're awesome. Anyway, this week we are joined by Rob Smith. Rob, as I said, is a regular contributor to the show. As I said, he is a Group MD at TPFG. And, you know, when you consider that Hunters is the third or fourth biggest estate agent in the UK and Whitegates and Northwood are not far behind, he's got his finger on the pulse. He's responsible for in excess of 300 branches. So if he doesn't know what's happening to the property market, then none of us know. Rob, thanks for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for the invite again, Chris.
Mate, you always give great value and you don't hold back, which at the end of the day is absolutely essential. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at week 22. Can you believe it? 22 weeks into the year. Doesn't seem like 2 minutes that the Cadbury's cream eggs were on the shelves in the new year. Week 22 is Monday the 2nd of June all the way through to include Sunday the 8th. Let us just remind us that this is the first full week after the May bank holiday, the late May bank holiday, which again, you'll see in the stats does make a huge difference. So without further ado, let's go and have a look at those stats. Rob, can you see those graphs on the chart, please, my friend?
I certainly can.
Good stuff, good stuff. Right, let me just pull that up. We just need to get everything in line, get the stars aligned, and we'll get going in a second. Hold on, here we go. Right then. So the way it works, ladies and gentlemen, is I'll look at listings and we'll go through those, and then Rob will give his thoughts, and then we'll move on to the other metrics: price reductions, sale agreeds, fall-throughs, net sales, exchanges, stock on the market, and then we'll move over to the rental data, which again is of interest to letting agents. So without further ado, this year, in terms of year to date, we are on 818,668 properties that have come onto the market since the start of the year. That is 8% higher than 17, 18 and 19, and 5% higher than last year in 2024. And 16% higher than the 9-year overall average. Although again, so that overall average is dragged down slightly by that 2020 figure. Because let's remember, we were only just coming out of, we missed out those 2 months in 2020 due to the pandemic. Let's look at listings on a week by week basis. The white line is 2025. And then the red line is 24. We also got 23, 19, 18 and 17 in there. And again, you will note that last week, the week before, sorry, we had the bank holidays, because what we always have in the UK property market is 3 dips, Easter and the 2 May bank holidays in a lot of the metrics. So again, it is all predicted. The market moves in a particular way. It doesn't change. It just, the level of it just moves up and down like the tide. Okay. So this week, as I said, in terms of listings, 39,320, which compared to other years is one of the highest figures. Slightly less than, well, nearest damn it the same as last year. The average price of a property coming on the market is 450,489. Let's go to you, Rob. What's your thoughts on listings, mate?
I think that it's a fill your boots market by the looks, in terms of the number that have come on year to date. I mean, having you and me both been in the industry for a pretty long time, that's the metric that we want to see. We want to see properties coming onto the market. So I think that demonstrates to every estate agent around that there is a huge opportunity out there to win instructions, get your stock up, everything else that goes with that. But yeah, so if you're not listing well, then I'd be a little bit concerned. I appreciate that people will be saying, yeah, but I only pick good stock at the right price and everything else that goes with that. But still, I'd be concerned if you're not putting a decent amount of properties on the market, because the market is saying to me that there's plenty of availability and lots to go at. So fill your boots to a degree.
To a degree. Because you can see here, we've had quite a sizable jump in stock levels between April and May. So these are the number of properties that were for sale at the end of May, May the 30th. Is it the 31st? Yeah, May the 31st. Okay. Now, there have been in previous years, there is always a jump between April and May. And again, it depends on the time of year. It depends on the year, how big that jump is. But it is a jump. Okay. So 756,000 properties. There's a lot of stock on the market. Now, let's just put that in context, ladies and gentlemen. That number was 1.2, 1.3 million in 2008. So let's not panic too much on the fact that there's too much supply. Back in 2008, demand curtailed off because no one could get mortgages because it's a credit crunch. So demand was lower, supply was much higher because everyone dumped their houses on the market, and that's what caused house prices to drop. So just bear that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, with regard to your stock levels. And again, we'll come on to in terms of what percentage of your stock should you be selling per month in a second. Anything else on listings before we go to price reductions?
Only the same old as we'd normally say is we say fill your boots, the market's there, but I'd be wary picking and choosing the right stock that comes on the market. Clearly be price conscious because of the availability, which we'll come on to. Be interesting to see how it goes for the rest of June, because it looks like the appetite's back from the Easter and the bank holiday weekends and the half terms in May. The general feel I'm hearing from our franchisees, but also that graph shows, is that we're back on it again. Hopefully the next 3 or 4 weeks will be the same.
Good stuff. Right, let's get back to the graphs. Hold on, just lost you there. Let's bring that back. Here we go. 2 seconds. Back, there we go. Price reductions. So again, 27,894. So again, people say, whoa, loads of price reductions. More properties on the market. The average price of a property being reduced is 440. Let's remind ourselves the average price of a property on the market is 450. That's been quite a while since the gap's been so narrow between, normally there's a 50 grand difference. So on average, we've been putting stuff on around 450, and the average price of a property being reduced has been around 400. So what that's telling me, Rob, is this week is that the agents with the higher price properties have been doing some decent price reductions.
Yeah, and they're probably, I think we saw, certainly last time I was on this, we saw the average price of instruction go up because the more expensive stuff started to list. I think that was maybe March time. That tends to suggest that that those more expensive properties haven't been selling, and therefore they've got some bigger price reductions, which probably echoes what you just said.
Indeed, indeed. Right. Let us get back to the graphs again. Right then. Now, I think this is a particularly important graph, and we do this on a monthly basis. So, what percentage of the stock that you had on the market did you reduce in May? Okay, and you can see there that that has been rising. And so in May, 14% of estate agent stock got reduced. So therefore, the judge there is work out what your stock was and work out what your reductions were in May, and then calculate that against. And just so you're aware, ladies and gentlemen, that number hardly changes on a regional basis. Central London is a little bit different, but apart from that, it all kind of is roughly the same. So that you should be in that sort of ballpark. Are you ready to move on to gross sales, Rob?
Yeah, definitely.
Right then. And again, we've still got those magic 3 dips of Easter and the 2 May bank holidays. But generally, Rob, you know, look at that. That is quite impressive in the fact. Yeah, you know.
It is. I think that's wrecked. I think that's showing that price reductions are working.
I mean, to give you,
go on.
I mean, to give you an idea, and that number has been smoothed off because it gets a bit spiky. If I took that spot, if I just did the raw numbers, that would be a bit spikier, and actually would be slightly higher. Just to give you an idea, Rob, this week, sorry, let's just show the numbers. We're on 28,641 properties. Okay. Now, last week was a bank holiday, so we can ignore that. The week before was 28,860. This week, 28,600. So therefore, we're only 150 off 2 weeks ago. Now, it might not look it there, but that's just the nature of the graph and the way the smooth curve works. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks ago, 28,861 was the highest number of property sales in terms of raw numbers for 3 years.
Well, you look at the peak on the graph, the white line, you can see it being over, and this week being over. Yep. And like I say, I'm intrigued to see what the next few weeks will bring, because I don't know why that still wouldn't be an upward trend. Certainly a consistent trend, but and higher than it has been, because it's all tailed off in future weeks, hasn't it?
It is. Do remember, though, if you can see here, is that the way the bank holiday week is that in the previous years, week 22 was the bank holiday week, so everything did drop here, and our bank holiday was the week before. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Is that, as I said, our bank holiday was a week ago. Everyone else's was in week 22, which is the week we're in now. Now, what you'll tend to find here is if you look, the general trend throughout June and into July is a slow, steady drift off. Okay, it is whereabouts on that drift, and I believe you're right. Is that subject to nothing stupid happening in the world? I think that we'll probably end up in week 31, which is that's the end of August. That's the August bank holiday. So this is August and this is July. I think we'll be running at a run rate of about 25,000 a week, sorry, in July, and then we'll be probably about 26, 27 in June, and 24, 25 in July going through to August. But it is, so be aware, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is that your stock levels are up. It's now time to move your stock, you work your stock, get it on at the right price and get it shifted, because the chances of it selling are going to diminish. As you can see here, the general trend is that it will diminish as we go throughout the year. Is that what you're telling your franchisees, Rob?
Yeah, well, because I think we're in that time of year where if you don't sell it and do something with it, somebody else might. So there's the time of year is for clients to start getting a bit twitchy. They hear houses are selling. They see more boards that have got sold up on the street. They start asking questions why their house hasn't sold. If you're not hot on your vendor care, talking to them regularly, and you're not demonstrating you're doing something for them other than having a chat, you got to be proactive with your vendor care. If you're not careful, then this is the time of year where somebody will come along and maybe have a chat with your vendor, reduce the price, nick it off you, reduce the price and sell it. So their figures go up. But what we do know, as you've alluded to, is the stock's available, the demand's there. So therefore, look after what you've got, as well as keep putting some on.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, what I would say is this: is I've just published this on social media this morning on LinkedIn, but I've just produced the 5-step Watkin price reduction framework. And if you want to download, you can either go to my LinkedIn, which was I published it on Wednesday, the 11th of June, and you can download, and you basically, this is available for you to look at. But if you want this sending to you, send me a text message with the word price reduction to the following number, and I will text you this. This, and it also has a script that you can do a verbal voice message, and also a script for an email, although this does work better face to face or on Zoom. But there is the 5-step process on how to get a price reduction using sales psychology. We're using emotion and logic in the correct order. So again, that might be useful to your franchisees, Rob. So do go and look at you can get the brownie points from your franchisees, go and download it and then send it to your franchisees. Please.
It's all about first seek to understand and begin with the end in mind. And using that process you put there and think about what it means to the customer, which I think most of us forget. What does it mean to the customer asking them for a price reduction? And if you get that and you start off with that in your mind, follow your process, and you'll probably end up with a result the customer isn't delighted with, but they probably are more likely to understand it.
So, right, what most agents go wrong is that they try and hit people with logic first. And for a human to make a decision, you need the yes from the emotion and the logic. But the true art in this world is if you want a human to make a decision that you want them to do, then the emotion has to say yes first 19 out of 20 times. It still has to be signed off by logic. But if you're hitting them with logic at the start, it won't work. You have to hit with emotion, get buy-in emotionally, then you can move over to the logic. And that 5-step process, go to my LinkedIn profile came out on Wednesday the 11th in the morning. It's all there, or you can send me a text message to 07950 147 572, and if you text me that with the word price reduction, I'll just bang you back the download on WeTransfer. I won't bother you or badger you or ask you for anything or try and sell you anything. Right, okay, let's get back to the graphs. Okay, moving on. This is a graph that some of you do like to use, and that is the stock. So the blue lines are the number of listings, and the red line highlighted with a bit of yellow is the percentage of the residential sales agreed expressed as a percentage of listings. So therefore, at the moment, back in if there is such a thing, good old days of 21, then we were the number of sales was greater than the number of listings, because you go over the 100% mark, it's up there. So at the moment, we're running at around a 75% listings to sales to listings percentage. Okay. You might do remember, ladies and gentlemen, all these graphs can be downloaded on the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube or the little write-up, scroll down to the bottom, little link there for WeTransfer, and you can download all these graphs. All I ask is that you please don't use them on social media. The reason being is my daytime job is that I'm a ghostwriter for estate and letting agents, writing local property market content to attract landlords and vendors. And it's some of my clients like to use these in addition, and it wouldn't be fair if they're paying me for the other stuff that you're using this for free. But you can use it at valuations and use it internally.
I think the only thing to add to that, Chris, is there's consistency, isn't it? If you look from January to now, other than a quick blip, we're pretty consistent. So you know what we should all understand what the market is, and therefore we should all be able to affect it positively.
Indeed. Well, that's a nice segue onto the Resi sell-through rate, not fall-through rate, sell-through rate. What percentage of your available stock are you selling per month? And we always do this a month in arrears. And in May, 16.08, or 1 in 6 houses of agent stock was selling. Okay. And I always find it fascinating that if you actually look, the shape of each year is almost identical. Up, squiggle, drift down, a little ski jump at the end for the October-November market, drop down to December. Up we go, little squiggle, drop down. And the graphs just follow the same shape. Ignore the COVID thing. And again, look there, same. Just everything moved up, same shape. That was that awful where we had the interest rates and the quasi-quaternion budget, which was awful. Moving on, we like to map the average price of a property coming on the market versus the average price of a property selling. So the average price of a property coming on the market this week, 450. The average price of a property selling, 373. That doesn't mean that the average property is being knocked down from 450 to 373. That just means that the lower price properties have a higher chance of selling compared to, as I said, the ones that come on the market. We track this on a weekly basis. The red line being the average listing price, and the blue line being the average sale agreed price. So again, everything is working there. Regular visitors will know to the show that this lump here is the people coming back from the people in London coming back and putting their houses on the market. London makes a huge difference, but it's the general trend and the gap between the two that's important. Anything on that before we?
Yeah, just a quick one, really. I think that's where your strong, educated estate agent understands what marketplace they should be aiming for if they want to maintain their instructions and sales ratio. So it's no point in continually listing a load of high end stuff if you're not selling it. That'll tell you which marketplace to aim at, and therefore that should give you a much better opportunity to make sure you sell what you're putting on. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely bang on. In fact, I've got some stats here. Is that you're in the East Midlands, Rob? So properties up to 257,000 have a 52.7% chance of getting a listing getting to exchange, whilst a property over 1 million is 36.5%.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do London. A property up to 500,000 has a 45% chance of selling and exchanging, whilst £1 million property has a 31.8%. And all the regions are the same. Is that the sweet spot, excluding London, the sweet spot is up to 500,000, and then she drifts off as she goes up price wise. So it might look good in the window, and it looks good on the coffee table, but are you selling it?
And where therefore are you aiming your canvassing, your touting, your marketing, your lead gen, which is what, and we can go on forever about lead gen, can't we?
Oh, don't, mate. I'm on. When this comes out, it'll be on Friday, and I'm on stage in front of a few thousand people, telling people how to do lead gen. Okay, so along with my partner in crime, Simon Ledbetter. So yeah, and if you want to know how to get more leads, stop talking about yourself and start talking about things that homeowners are interested in, which is themselves, the locality, and the local property market. Because I tell you what, Rob, this is not scripted. Whenever someone finds out you're an estate agent of a social function, the first question they ask is,
what's the market like?
There you go.
How much is my house worth?
There you go.
That's why I don't tell anybody I'm an estate agent.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you watching are agents, and if you're not, I know you really want to be agents. I'd say stop talking about yourself, stop talking about Rightmove pie charts, waving your willies and things like that, saying, because we all know damn well you're posting your Rightmove pie charts for your bruised ego and rub it in the face of your competitors. Just talk about what the punters are interested in, and they're interested in the property market. Let's move on. Sale fall throughs. Okay. Sale fall through rate this week, let's just pull the stats up, is oh, sorry, I've got it's like a spreadsheet from hell. 23.54%, which is slightly above the running average of 20. The average this year has been around 22, but the average in the last 8 years has been 24. Number of fall throughs, as I said, you can see on the graph there, is just it's around 6,500, although last week was a bank holiday. So what you tend to find is that, again, you have the 3 dips of the bank holiday, and then the ones that should have fallen through catch up the week afterwards. I think this is a more important graph. What percentage of your sales pipeline are falling through each month? And at the moment, she's just dipped up to 5.84. Again, more sales pouring in, and if something's going to fall through, they tend to fall through at the start or the end. So that doesn't particularly concern me on that one. Number of fall throughs, as I said, sold 6,743. Any thoughts on fall throughs before we move on to net sales?
I can remember when I worked for Woolwich Property Services,
Bloody hell, you showed your age there,
Bit
mate.
of an anecdotal. Bit of an anecdotal. So the MD of Woolwich Property Services walked into the meeting, and said, "Anyway, I've been looking at these stats, and do you know what? Let's get rid of all them fall throughs because we'll make a fortune." And I thought that's a building society person talking to an estate agent. Nice concept, nice idea. The challenge is, as you well know, is there is a bit there is quite a bit you can do to influence it, but also there's a bit that's the nature of the beast. So I think you got to balance that. Do you accept that they're going to happen? They're out of your control to a degree, but also make sure that as much of it is in your control as possible. So I won't be beating myself up if my fall through is at 23%, because it is what it is to a degree.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one slightly. I'm a massive fan of the following things, and it scares me agents don't do this. Is this: instruct the solicitors when you put the house on the market. Get that back, especially if it's an apartment. Let's say. The second thing is I'm a massive fan of reservation agreements. Okay. The important now, a lot of bosses say it doesn't work. It doesn't. A lot of a lot of the firms that offer reservation agreements don't train the staff. So the boss comes on board, but they don't train the staff. And if the valuer don't get it, it don't matter how good you are. So one that I'm a very big fan of, and I don't get paid to recommend them, but it's Gazelle with Brian Mansell. That's Brian with a Y. He's a regular person on the show. Please, you'll get your fall through. You'll get your fall through rate to single digits, ladies and gentlemen. Now you're going to say, well, what if there's a dodgy survey? What if the chain falls through? That's fine. You're all covered. But it stops the Pratt saying if you don't include the wardrobe, or if I don't get exchanged tomorrow, I'm pulling out. You know those Pratts, we've all been there. It stops that happening. You know, the ones that right at the end, because they throw the rattle out the pram.
And who am I to disagree with you? We use a similar product with a different supplier, and that is starting to work for us, which is a committed buyer scheme where the buyer has to sort of put something down.
I want you to disagree with me, mate.
So I do agree. I said to you, you can influence it. Whether you can influence it as much as that is another kettle of fish. Time will tell. But I do believe that there is a huge amount of work that you can do before the house goes on the market, which speeds the transaction up. And the reality of it is, and we say this all the time, the quicker the buyer's buckled into the car, the faster you put the foot down, the less likely they're going to jump out.
Hang on.
And if you have that philosophy, the earlier you start, the more likely you'll time in.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, let's remember one of my favourite stats. If a property sells within 25 days, the chances of it getting through to exchange, 94%. If a property takes more than 100 days to achieve a sale, its chances of getting through to exchange, 56%. Okay? You've either got a 19 out of 20 chance of getting it through or a 1 in 2 chance. I know which ones I'd rather have. That means it all comes down to price the thing correctly from day one. So if you do have a vendor that says, well, I'm just testing the market. I don't know about you, Rob, but when I were a lad and I had proper hair and not silver hair.
What, back in day,
we had the magic listing. My area manager, David Gordon, used to give me the listings triangle.
David Gordon.
Right? Yeah. Your move up moved up to the northeast. And he said to me, Christopher, he was only about like 4 years older than me, bless him. But you know, and
he used to be branch manager of Halifax in Lincoln on Silver Street, down the road from my office.
Yeah, that's the same guy. Lovely guy.
Jane Pridgeon was his gaffer.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Pridgeon, ex-Halifax Group MD, fantastic lady. Star lady. I'd love to get her on the sofa because she's the one that. But anyway, so this triangle, ladies and gentlemen, right? He said to me, put this on a piece of paper and stick it to your little, the foldy out bit. And he says, you only put a house on the market if you've got 2 of the points of the triangle, okay? And it said price, fee, motivation. Okay? Again, it's old school. When you had hair and I had dark hair, mate, when we were at the cold face, then you can't go wrong if you've got 2 of those. If you've only got 1, you set yourself up for fail. We've got to be ballsy enough to walk away from listings, haven't we?
And I think there's enough I think there is enough coming on the market. There's enough availability there's enough stock for you to walk away. If you can't get what you want within reason, as you say, if there's 2 out of 3, take it. If
Yeah.
there's 1 out of 3, why bother? Because somebody will buy something else on the street. Something will come up on the street soon that they'll
Yeah.
buy. So go back to it. Go back to it and follow it up. Keep in touch with it and list it in 8 to 12 weeks.
That's the magic thing is that we let our ego get in the way, that they chose the other agent, and then you take it personally and you don't ring them up. You've got to ring them up. If you lose a listing, you've got to ring them up more often than their existing agent. And you're going to say, well, what am I going to ring them up about? Why don't you send them properties that they're looking for on WhatsApp? Or this is a beautiful one. Send them on WhatsApp properties like the one they're selling. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I know you've got. I know you're on the market with your 3-bedroom semi. This has just come on the market with another agent, which is in direct competition with you. I thought of you, and I think it's important you keep in contact and see what your competitors are doing, and just keep drip feeding that stuff out. You'll be on a winner. Right then. Okay. So we are on fire today, mate. If I do say so myself. Are you going to the conference on Friday? Oh, no,
No, I'm not, unfortunately. So I won't. I've got Hannah, who's my lettings director at Hunters. She's going down because she's sort of guru of all things lettings for me. So I think you know Hannah. So she's going on my behalf to make sure we're up to speed with everything.
I will buy her a gin and tonic at the Fox. So I normally see her there, and we will chew the fat with everything to PFG.
Brilliant.
Let's get back to this. Star lady, ladies and gentlemen, if you are absolute star lady. Right, net sales. This is gross sales, less fall throughs. And this week we're on 21,898, 444,000. This is the stuff you're going to get paid on, which is 6% higher than last year and 11% higher than 24, 25, 26. There's the graph there, which shows that, again, there's our normal dips of Easter and the 2 bank holidays. Back we go. So, again, a cracking month, a cracking week. Anything on that before? Anything on that? Or should we?
No, I just think it echoes what we've been talking about on gross sales and instructions and price reductions. Get it all right and your net sales follow.
You're so right. Right, let's move on. We've just done, as I said, gross sales as a percentage of listings, which again is basically the same. This is this graph here, ladies and gentlemen, but that's a historical one, and this is a what's called a week snapshot, and price changes as a percentage of listings as well. Let's move on. Let's just do a little bit extra. These are the graphs. We've got the May figures in now. And we're looking here, the red line is the exchanges and the yellow line is the number of withdrawals. Now, I must stress to you is that the May figures are in, but not all of the May figures are in. So we do have to take that with a slight pinch of salt. So the yellow line will go up as it will the red. So that was your March. And then April finished at around 63,000. And I suspect, knowing what I know of how the numbers come through, I will probably end on around 63. Have we robbed Peter to pay Paul? There's been an element of that because a lot of people squeeze their pipelines. But again, let's just remind ourselves what the pipelines are. We'll just do that now. You've got 479,000 in your pipelines, which again, decent numbers. It's the classic getting the sale through. But again, if you get the sale instructed, the solicitor's instructed from day one, then you're going to get that through quicker. It's not going to fall through as much. Your chances of sale. So in May, 51% of the properties that left estate agents' books you got paid on, 49% or 48.9% withdrew unpaid. So again, that number will change slightly. There, that graph there, that one there is your March figures where you had a bumper month. And then if you noticed here, Rob, is that we always have some spikes at December because everyone gets their exchanges through.
Yeah.
And the withdrawals are quite low, so the percentages. Again, just a couple of extra graphs here. This shows you the proportional split between properties in your sales pipeline, which is the green, and the orange is the properties for sale. It's the movement of the two. And if you want the raw numbers, again, let's not spend too much time on this, but you can download this and look at it to your heart's content. This is new numbers that have come through. What we're looking at here is the pound per square foot. Now, Valuing properties pound per square foot locally is not a particularly great way to value properties, but nationally it all sorts itself out. And again, those of you that know who watch the show, the orange line, which is the pound per square foot at sale agreed, matches the land registry almost perfectly, albeit 5 months in advance. So therefore, we have had an uptick in the sales that were agreed in May, and quite a sizable uptick of around £4 or £5 from around 339 to 346. Now again, that number could just change slightly as more exchanges come through and more sales come through and the data catches up. But the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, that orange line is going up, which is, if you want good news with house prices, there's your stat. Anything on that before we move on to rentals?
No, other than to echo your point, I think sort of quarter two is balancing out quarter one on total numbers, because obviously we saw a big spike in quarter one of exchanges. That couldn't have continued, and April was pretty harsh, and May's been a bit of a recovery. June hopefully will see a better month, more consistent, and a better average month historically. But the good news is by the looks of it, the majority of people, or the marketplace, tends to suggest you've replaced your pipeline. So you should be going into the summer period, should be going into quarter three. Historically, we went into quarter three with the biggest pipeline of the year, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be the case. Good sales month in June.
No, your pipeline gets the height in June or July, and then slowly drifts off, and then it squeezes, and then it drops out when you're in December. Right. Okay. Let's move on to some rental data. Okay, this is a brand new graph, Rob. You are, in honor of you. So what we've done here is the red is the available UK rental property, the average number of properties available to rent in that month. Okay, so you can basically looking at the trend levels, and you can see here that yes. So this is 17, 18 and 19, and then she dropped off in 2021. So but notice that the general trend is now upwards. Okay, so the number of rental properties is growing slightly. I mean, interestingly, month on month, they're down. They are down. But the general trend, is that it is on the up. The yellow line is the average rent. So you can see here that there was an average rent was pretty static in 17, 18 and 19 and 20 and has grown. Notice how she's leveled off a bit. Now, again, wonderful graph here. This shows you the rents. This shows you the rents in it, but split down by region. And I'm going to zoom in on this, okay, you will notice that most just tend to be a ski jump, apart from inner London. Okay, and this is again a particular. So the red line is 16, orange is 17, yellow is 18, and then the green dropped off in 20, 19 and 20. Look how she's dropping, and she really did drop. That was everyone leaving London. And then she's gone up. But again, notice it in London, it's dropping slightly. And again, ladies and gentlemen, because you know I'm a property statistician, rents, what drives rents is wages. That's what drives rents. Okay. Let's just remind ourselves, rents, that's what rents have gone up by since 2016. However, when we strip out the inflation, feel sorry for the guys in Scotland and the guys in the southwest, but to say that rents in London are 11% cheaper in real terms after inflation, you wouldn't think that, would you?
No, I'm assuming you're looking at that from inflation and an affordability. Yeah, in terms of the whole picture. So again, let's open that Pandora's box. This is looking at the rent, and then the rental growth, which is that one, and stripping out inflation. Just inflation. Okay.
Yeah, right. Now, what is particularly interesting is that real wages are higher today than they were 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and they are higher than they were in 2016. It doesn't feel like it, but the stats are there. Okay, scary, isn't it? Oh, and those are the average rent. Again, look rents. This is inner London. That they've just basically started to drift down, and most are growing. That's not a particularly awesome graph, unfortunately. There's a lot of detail going on there. Hence, we put the national figures on, which is there, but just gives you a flavour. I think the bottom line is this: rents have stabilised. Stock is reducing. Sorry, that's wrong. Rents
Stock
are
is increasing.
rising. Rents are rising, and the number of properties coming onto the market is kind of grown from a couple of years ago, but not as much as it was in 17, 18, and 19.
I think we're seeing slightly a different trend in some of the cities where there's a lot more availability
A lot
on
in
a
the
lot
city.
more availability in some of the cities, and therefore rents are under a bit of pressure, because of the nature that there's a lot about. So yeah, in most locations we're seeing that rents are stable and creeping up, and availability is challenging. But in some of the cities, that certainly apartments, then we're seeing more on the market, more available.
And that is the good side and the bad side of regional stats is that there's a lot more properties in cities. A, there's a lot more properties, and B, there's a higher percentage of those properties are in the rental sector in the cities. So that drags, what is fascinating is if you look at the Scotland market, for argument's sake, they are so affected by Glasgow, Aberdeen, and Glasgow.
Yeah,
You could
and
almost
Edinburgh. Yeah,
take those out, and Scotland would be like the northeast. But Scotland looks like it's awesome.
yeah.
When in reality, it's just Edinburgh and Glasgow and Aberdeen doing its thing. Okay. Any comments that you want to get off your chest now, or you can save them to the end? The choice is yours.
Same to the end.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the first part of the show, and now let us go and do a local focus where we're going to go to Stockport. So let's go and have a look. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are using a piece of software called Insight. Insight is from a firm called 20EA. 20EA have a number of software platforms, one of which is Insight. Insight is like Rightmove Plus, but on steroids, with lasers and glitter balls and a couple of rockets strapped to it. The amount of data it has is exceptional. Just about all the big estate agency chains have this, and an awful lot of smaller agents have this bit of kit. And if you are looking to measure yourself and judge yourself against the competition, especially if not only you want to know what's happening to your competitors and what you're doing, but also to prove whether another agent is overvaluing or is a poor agent, then this bit of kit actually proves it. It's Rightmove Plus on steroids. I must stress that I've not been paid to mention this. They do 20EA give this platform to me for free, but in return I use the data to produce the data that you've seen in the first part of the show, and also analyze what we're going to do in this week, Stockport. The platform itself has a number of packages. There's a free version, which the data only goes back 3 months, but you can have a play with it. There is one where you can have 10 postcodes, region, and then national. And I think it's bloody good value for money, excuse my French, but I'm not paid. Don't mention my name. I don't get any benefit from it. I just think it's a fantastic bit of kit. I know, Rob, you're a big fan of it as well. So without further ado, let's go to Stockport. Okay. Rob, as always, mate, I'll just keep talking. You cut across me if you see something that you like. All right. So which postcodes are we looking at this week, ladies and gentlemen? So for the postcodes, we are looking in the SK postcode with postcodes from SK1 all the way through to SK7. Most of that is course Stockport, but there are a few little baby satellite large villages come merge in towns which are on the outskirts of that, which merge into that. It's a lovely part of the world, ladies and gentlemen. You've got obviously Manchester on your doorstep, and you've got the Peak District as well, and you've got good road networks. And as I said, the town of Stockport is amazing. Have you ever been, Rob?
I haven't. I mentioned to you, I drove round the outskirts of it on my way to Manchester, having come over the tops of the Peak District. And I have to say, as I dropped in, I think it was at Whaley Bridge that's not a million miles away. And lovely, lovely place. Really nice.
I mean, just to give you, in terms, it has an absolutely. I'm just trying to find a bridge. Let me just find that bridge for it. Let me just share that screen because I am a massive fan. Hold on,
Not
right.
trains again.
People have accused me of being a train spotter. I just want to say for the record, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a train spotter, but I'm very enthusiastic about trains. Okay.
Enthusiast.
Okay, so this bridge goes all the way through. It is a massive bridge that goes right through the centre of Stockport. And again, I'm going to leave you. Again, would you expect if I was mentioning some trains that there wouldn't be a geeky stat? And here we go. Is that when that bridge was built, there was a prerequisite by the local authority that every train that crossed that bridge had to stop at Stockport. So there is never a passenger train that goes through Stockport that doesn't stop at Stockport station.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
I am full of rubbish. I mean, look at this. Look, I've even got a book there later. Look, there you go. Okay, sorry.
Shall we stick to the stats?
Property. Here we go. So let's go and have a look. So the average price, there we go. Move around. There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking back from the 1st of January 2020 through to the 10th of June 2025. Residential sales. The average price of a property that's come on the market, because it's new instructions, is £332,000. Number of properties coming on the market, 26,850, with an average pound per square foot of 315. And you can see here the mix of the price ranges there. Okay. We'll be looking at stock levels in a second, and we'll be looking at sales, price reductions, fall throughs, and exchanges in a second. So this is who is the best agent in Stockport. Okay. So remember the 332, and let's go and analyse the agents. We're not going to analyse every single one. We're just going to analyse the bulk of them in Stockport. So first off, we start off with Edward Mellor. Edward Mellor, I believe, are an independent estate agent with about 10-ish branches, primarily based in that south part of Manchester. Old school estate agency with a modern twist, which is very nice to see. My understanding is, looking at doing my homework, is that they did sell their rental portfolio off back to Lomond, not quite recently, so that will affect their lettings. So let's have a look at their Resi Sales. So immediately the average price is 332, and it looks like the Edward Mellor, their market share has been bouncing between 15 and 20%. The general trend is neither up nor down, is pretty steady, which is nice to see. And their average price is 265, which obviously shows they go for the lower to middle market with regard to their properties. Okay, so that's quite nice, being number one agent, and there's no attrition there, is there? In fact, I might even say there's a slight uplift of probably 0.5% to 1% between 21 and 25, but it is quite spiky, isn't it? Like great month, not so great month, great month, not so great month. I'll keep going into.
No, very consistent, aren't they? They clearly know that they're clearly. As I think you put that with a modern twist, they clearly have embraced what the marketplace is and what it brings. Because otherwise, if they weren't, you'd have seen a trend of falling off. So clearly are on it.
Okay, so the next one is Julian Wadden. These guys were bought out by Lomond, I think, just after COVID, I think. So their market share for residential sales was hovering around 13-14%. We've seen a slight drift downwards there in terms of market share. Again, as I say, great. I mean, I must admit, I do know some of the guys there, and they are absolutely exceptional. But again, remember what is Lomond do tend to focus a lot more on residential lettings.
That's just what I was about to. Didn't want to stick it out there, but maybe the focus has switched a bit.
And that's where the value is. Leaders, Romans, which I don't know, they call them LRG nowadays, don't they? Lomond and the others is they're buying up letting agents because it's a cash cow, and eventually they'll sell it. The money that's buying these letting agents, they'll sell it on to someone else. Because what you tend to find is this: if you buy lots of little agents, the multipliers, I don't know, 1.5 times gross turnover. If you have a big monolith, a huge one, they'll be able to probably sell it out at 2 times gross turnover. That's just the way it works in this world. So again, it would be good to see what their lettings book does. Let's move on to Bridgeford's. Okay, we had some decent growth in 2021 with a spike at the end of 21, but a slight drifting downwards since then. Okay, Lawler and Co. Growth. Well done, guys. It looks like you had a good 20. Back end was poor, but nicely growing there, so that's nice to see. One to watch. Gascoigne Hallam, consistent between 4 and 6%. Reeds Reigns, part of the LSL, so they'll be part of the franchise network. So, well, I'm not sure if that's what. There's two huge franchisors and then some baby ones as well. They're all fantastic people, but that's nice and steady. But between the four, quite spiky. Average price 238. Actually, let's just look at the prices. So, Gascoigne at 478. So they're obviously dealing with the posh end, mate, aren't they?
Yeah, they do. That's their marketplace mark.
Okay. Thomas Lardner. Okay. Oh, Reed Reigns. Yeah, sorry. Thomas Lardner, 305. Slight drifting downwards. Philip James Kennedy. Guys, it looks like you were towards the three or third place and you're drifting downwards. PB, drifting down, but again, that's not unexpected. Leighton Snow, nice and steady. Ian Tong. Okay, we'll go down to number 20. EXP, nice growth, nice one. Snapes, Mosley Jarman, John Mellor, Wardour Properties, Spencer Harvey. Stripe will only go up to, there we go, 24. Then they went Hart. Go on, I'll just whiz through these because I know you'll all be interested. Oh, there's the agency, what they got. They're great. Oh, look at that. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do now is let us go and have a look. We're going to do two things here. Let's just go and look at what's been happening in the last 1 year. Let's just see who's pulling trees up here. And immediately, Edward Mellor, nice and steady. But EXP coming up, and did I see TA UK, the agency? That that is impressive from a cold start. So again, there's some good agents there. Not much different, but again, isn't it interesting that that the self-employed agency models are growing? Yeah, EXP for the last few months have been around 2 or number 3. It wouldn't surprise me if very soon EXP make the biggest estate agent for listings and sales. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Anything on that while I change the dates and we go look at the posh price ranges?
Other than clearly the ones that have grown, so the independent or the self-employed, whichever models you want to describe them as, they've affected the vast majority of estate agents, apart from the one that's probably had a clear and total focus on what it's doing, which is Edward Mellor, because they haven't touched that, have they?
It doesn't look like it. But again, a big thing a lot of bosses are is what happens if you red up value and leaves you and then goes and opens up a self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So let's look. Where does the upper quartile kick in? Well, okay, let's start off at 500,000. So it shows me that there isn't a massive real posh bit. So Gascoigne Hallam, as expected, at the top. Julian Wadden, nice to see. So, as you expected, Edward Mellor, more of a lower end, middle watts. Julian Wadden looks like they're more Marks and Spencers. Let's drop off. Let's drop off the prices and see what happens to the league table. So we're now 600. Okay, and we'll go up to 750. Wait for this to kick in. It does take a while, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Moseley Jarman. Okay, interesting. Let's see if is there much of a market over 1 million. Wait for it to kick in. Again, there's not many properties, 384 in 5 and a bit years. So the numbers are all over the place. But again, just something interesting. You can see, and again, ladies and gentlemen, I've not done new builds, but again, the wonderful thing here is you can change it to the type of house, and you can change it here to fall throughs, exchange, price changes, relisted, sold subject to contract, and withdrawal. So you can measure all this, and you can measure yourself against the competitors, because I do know you agents do love to measure things. Right, let's move on and let's look at stock levels. And if we just hover over May, that's your May stats. It just shows you that now this is that yes, the number of properties for sale in May 2020 was 1,541. She dropped down to 1,180. Now, interestingly, this is that stock levels today nationally are about 6 or 7% higher than they were last year, whilst in stock levels in Stockport are actually lower by about 5%. So that's it. That is very strange. Normally, when I do this, the current year is the highest stock level years, whilst 2024 was the high year. So that's interesting. And again, you can see the stock levels and just generally here. And again, the wonderful thing is you can play with this to your heart's content and see what stock levels. Again, as Rob rightly said, you do need it to sell it, but you've got to put it on the right price to sell it.
Interesting to see what the sales market's done. If that's the reason why there's less stock, if they've had a larger than normal.
Well, I tell you what.
Right.
What's names and giggles? Okay, let's just have a quick look and just see for sales. We can change this to sales. But again, this gives us trends. I'm not going to spend too much on this because I'm just conscious of the time of the ladies and gentlemen watching. There we go. Sale agreed. Let's just have a look here. It does take a while for it to kick in. Here we go. So, all price bands. Yep, that's right. Come on, this does take... We're dealing with big numbers here. Okay. Right, I'm going to let that catch up, Rob, okay?
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, there is some amazing data here, ladies and gentlemen, and immediately see, ladies and gentlemen, my daytime job is taking data, okay, and then packaging it up for estate agents to market out to make them look like the most awesome estate agent in the world, right? Or in your case, Stockport. Now, most agents would be really like a dog with two tails, like a new instruction market share, and sale agreed subject to contract. I want you to ignore those, ladies and gentlemen. I also want you to ignore fall through rates and price changes for a second. Although, Rob, I'm going to be coming to you in a second about those, okay? What I want you to look at here, ladies and gentlemen, is exchanged and withdrawn. Okay, we are looking at between the last 2 years. So that is the 11th of the 6th, all the way through 23 to the 10th of the 6th, 25. If you add up the exchanged and withdrawn, they all add up on each line to 100%. Why is that important? Just look at those 4 columns, ladies and gentlemen. You see, when a property leaves an estate agent's books, it only leaves because she exchanges or she withdraws. You only get paid on which one, Rob? I'm setting it up to bat it out of the park. Go on, mate. Go on. Smash it out of the park.
You get paid on what exchanges, obviously.
And the exchange. Right. So that I personally believe your right move pie charts is a load of rubbish. I don't care how many you've sold. It's what percentage of the homes you put on the market did you sell? And there is the average is 67.89, which is higher than the national average at 54. So again, I would expect that because nationally, the Northwest is one of the better performing areas, only beaten by Scotland. And I think, is it Ulster or North East? Can I remember? Or it might be Yorkshire. Never mind. Detail. The important thing here is this. What percentage of the homes that have left your books in the last 2 years in those postcodes have you been paid on? Edward Mellor, 71.09. Julian Wadden, 77. I told you they were good.
You did?
So, whilst the market share of Julian Wadden is dropping, I would hazard a guess that whilst they are putting less houses on the market, what they are is actually selling more, getting more away. So that shows good stock management, all right, and good listing. So well done, Julian Waddens. So Laura and Co at 76, Bridgeford's at 68, Gascoigne and Hallam at 71. That's really good. EXP 83. Fantastic. Interestingly, Rob, I analysed the top 100 estate agents in the UK by size of listings and worked out what their average exchange rate was. And then in that same 100, I plucked out the 5 self-employed models and looked at what their exchange ratio was. And there's a 20% difference, 20.1 difference. Self-employed estate agents sell 20.1% more homes than the biggest 100 estate agents.
Did you want me to keep coming back on this show?
Just no, but hold on a second.
I'm only kidding.
No, but again, in that top 100, there are a lot of those brands are in your bit. And the magic is this: is that even though like your Northwoods might be a big brand, there are actually owner operators.
Yeah,
and the owner operator agents in the top 100 had really decent percentages. You were just dragged down by everyone else.
Yeah.
If we
but
were
without a doubt, whether you've got a high street premises or you trade out of your bedroom, your lounge, your shed, your serviced unit, if it's your business, you have to be more committed to selling it because you're there for longer, and you want the customer to return. So I think there's logic behind why it is as it is, and to be fair, you're probably in a bit more control over it. Well, you're probably in a lot more control over it.
Let's just look at the stats. So the biggest 100 estate agents exchange contracts nationally on 52.7% of the houses they list. But you hunters, okay, 61.7. Okay, which is, I mean, the average for self-employed agents is 63. Okay, so that just shows you that hunters are a big brand, but they have the same percentages as self-employed. So the fact you're self-employed is irrelevant. The magic is this, is that the smaller agents where the one person deals with it start to end have a greater percentage chance, huge chance of getting the property away. The numbers prove it. Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Any thoughts on that before we carry on?
We could sit here forever because it all links into everything from recruiting the right people, retraining them, developing them, retaining them, everything else, making them care. The less people you've got and the more accountable you are for your own business, the more likely you're going to sell more houses.
There you go. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. This man is preaching the truth. It all comes down to the bosses and the leadership. And I tell you now, there's some fantastic numbers in here and there's some absolute shockers in here. So that's your magic. Let's just have a quick look at everyone else.
That answers the question that I posed earlier on. That's higher than average sales, and therefore that might be why the stock's less, because they're actually got, I mean, that sell-through rate. I mean, when we've done this before, we've looked at agents that are at 44% and 48% and 52%. Yeah, you've got virtually no one less than, you've got one less than 60%, who's ballpark 60. The rest of them are 65 to 75, aren't they?
So a lot of that's going to be where they are. Yeah. You're in the northwest, which is higher. Stockport's a good place to live. Very a lot of demand. But it's you against your competition. So again, I hope that was useful. Let's just have a quick look through and see who's got the fall throughs. So the average is 23. Have we got anyone that stick out? Ian Tong, you've got a fall through rate of 30. Who's at 34? That's high. Purple Bricks. Nice fall through rates. The average is 23. The big agents are in the early 20s. It's quite nice to see. Okay, let's have a look at price changes. Who's changing their prices? Average is 36. Oh, there's some big agents here with price reductions. Bridgeford's are reducing nearly
50% of what they put on.
So I wonder if I wonder if we've got
Your favourite subject about to hit the headlines.
Here we go. Overvaluing. Let's find it. In fact, hold on a second. I haven't done it. Here we go. Forgot to open up the screen, mate. Oh my word. Let's just get this in. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Do you know I've missed the screen? Unbelievable, Jeff. Unbelievable. Right, hold on. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Do you know? Trying to find it. Oh, anyone think I knew what I was doing?
There you go.
There we go. Right, I'll just let that kick in. Okay. Wait for that to kick in, and it should be in any time now. Here we go. Right. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? So, just check you can see the screen, yeah? So, what have we got here? A lot going on. And again, my skill set, ladies and gentlemen, is looking at data and coming up with one-liners and marketing. So again, if you are a Stockport agent and you're looking to grow your agency to attract landlords, retain landlords, and also bring in new ones for sales and lettings, do give me a call, because I can only work for one agent in Stockport. And if it isn't you, I'm going to be working against you to try and get nick your stuff. I say that nicely with love and respect, but we've all got the earning to live. Right, what have we got here? Original listing price. So we are looking, when I say we, 20EA, look at all the exchanges you've done in the last 2 years, right? Secondly, whenever you put the house on the market, their 20EA have a AVM figure, automated valuation figure for that property. And basically they date stamped it on the day you put the house on the market. They looked at the house price you put it on the market for, and then they looked at what the AVM is, and they will calculate the average percentage difference. So what we've got here is Edward Mellor are valuing nice and tight at 0.81. Julian Wagner overvaluing slightly at 1.52. Lawler and Co 1.38, and so on and so forth as you go down. So the agents in the top 10 that seem to be valuing nice and tight are Ian Tong, EXP, Gascoigne Hallam, and Edward Mellor. Okay, so that's your overvaluing stat, and these are only on the ones that you exchanged on, not the ones that you overvalued and then it didn't sell. Let's move on to the next column. Price achieved. What price did you achieve from the original asking price? And immediately, I'm really impressed with Edward Mellor, that because they priced it correctly, or closer to what 28 thought the house was worth, they're achieving on average 0.4% higher than the original asking price. Also, if you look at EXP, they're valuing nice and tight at 0.64, but they're getting 1.14 over the original asking price on average. Now, a lot of people don't like percentages, so therefore what they say is this. Let's move on to the next column, average listing price. If everyone put on a £350,000 house, what on average would you achieve for it? And this is the percentage, this is the pound note difference over the average. So the average is obviously going to be zero because you're basing it against the average. So therefore, Edward Mellor will get £7,900 more than an average Stockport agent. And as you go down that list, there are some, I will not mention the names, I'll let the stats say themselves. There are some agents out there, I mean, there are some, in that top 10, there are some agents that are not getting the prices. I mean, look, from the top to the bottom, Rob, there's 15 grand difference.
Yeah.
But I mean, the agent that again, let the numbers speak on the screen. And if you're seeing this on a phone, blow up the screen, get it on a big screen. You know, that agent that's at the top end can say, I'll get you 9 grand more than the average agent in Stockport. That's powerful stuff, isn't it?
It just says that whatever processes and people they've got in there and systems, they're working it and they're maximising it and they're returning on it. And I would guess they're probably going out with a story that's not too dissimilar to what you've just portrayed.
Indeed. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the power of the data. You know, data doesn't lie. Now you need to. You're all very good emotionally to get people buying in, but if you can throw it in with a bit of data as well. And again, the way you publish this is so important. If you don't publish it in the right way, the ASA will come down on you like a ton of bricks. So again, if you want to know how to do it, just shout out to me. I've already given you my number earlier in the show, so you can give me a shout out. Okay, anything on that before we move on?
No.
Okay, nearly there. So how quickly do I? Oh, look at this. EXP on average. So the average agent takes 58 days to find a buyer, and EXP 31. Remember the stat we said: if a property sells really quickly, its chances going through to exchange are even higher. So what this is showing me is, if you price right, you get it sold quickly, you get it down for a damn good price, and you get it through quicker. Because on average, EXP take 157 days to get a property through, whilst the most of the average around here, 191. EXP could say, I'll get you in your house 30, 40 days quicker. Nearest damn it. Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can play with all these details, but again, we're not here to just give you a flavour, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at the let on this market, and immediately we can see here that open rent have grown from around 10% of the market to roughly around 18%. Open rent are the bit that's really affecting the rental market, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, as they are everywhere. Every single time I join you, and every time I look at the stats, that's the one that is certainly standing out. However, saying that, the question you asked earlier on about Julian Wadden is answered there, isn't it? As well.
Well, we haven't. We're going to look at it in a second because we've not clicked on it yet. Okay, so this is open rent. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, the number of rental properties in the UK is actually still growing. It doesn't feel that way. The stats say they are. It's not growing a lot, but it is growing. So therefore, if you're actually, in terms of your rental portfolio, if you're actually standing still, you're actually growing, because this is the scary bit. And this blows my mind every time I say it, is that over half, it's 51.2%, over half of the rental listings that Open Rent have put on the market between 1st of Jan 23 and the end of December 24, over half of them were previously on the market with a high street agent. That growth here has come from you lot. So what are you doing to retain your existing landlords? Hard enough to attract new ones. What are you doing to retain them? Again, what I teach my agents to do is, isn't it funny? I mean, I think one of the worst paid jobs is a property manager. But I think it's the most important job in the agency, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very key. Absolutely key to retaining your landlord.
And there's some techniques you can use. Basically, the best thing is to sit down with your landlords and do a portfolio check and match them with their investment advice. And if you haven't got someone to do that, then find someone who's good at it. Don't let an estate agent do it though, because I'll try and sell them stuff. Let's go look at Julian Wadden. Well, I mean, that, it's a bit spiky, but again, I would actually say, I mean, look, we've had a good 2025. Okay, there was a spike, that was December, but fundamentally, that is not bad at all. Okay, now let's just have a look. We did say Edward Mellor. Let's just see what they're doing. So Edward Mellor have dropped off. So I wonder where Edward Mellor. So is Julian Wadden, is some of that growth the stuff that's come from Edward Mellor? We don't know. Or is that organic growth? Who knows? But either way, that's still good stuff. Gascoigne Hallam, Bridgefords, Spencer Harvey, Reed Rains, wow, Philip James, Castle, Hibbert Holmes. We'll just go through it. We'll just whip down these so you get a flavour. Thornley Groves, they're part of the Lomond Group in Manchester. Okay, there we go. Right, I think that is the end of the Stockport bit. Again, if you are, we'll just go to Rob in a second if you've got any final thoughts with regard to what you've seen. But if you're a Stockport agent and you're looking to grow your agency, then feel free to give me a shout on 07950 147572. But if you're happy where you are, then just ignore me. Rob, final thoughts from you, mate?
I've scribbled a couple of bits down. I think, as I said earlier on, the stock's available. The listings are coming on. The stock's available. We've got decent sized pipelines. We know that the summer tends to be, or can be, a bit of a more inactive sales market. So I'd look at that and I'd be saying you got 4 weeks to list what you can get hold of. List what you can get hold of. Get your stock as big as you can. Look at the prices of what you've already got on the market and make sure that you maximize the next 5 weeks, 6 weeks to sell it. Because once the summer holidays come, everyone disappears and sales naturally slow down a bit. So get the prices right. But also, I think you got to look at what you're going to do with the stock rather than just ask for a price reduction. What else am I going to offer you? What else am I going to do different? What else am I going to do to boost it on the portals or photos or whatever you're going to do? You've got to have a plan. You've got to have something that buys the vendor in to you doing something different that's going to get that property shifted. So what are you going to do to sell it? And have a strategy behind it. And then it's the summer of managing your expectations, isn't it? Managing customers' expectations, yours. I think you've got to the middle of July, 5 weeks or so, to absolutely get this nailed. And I think the last thing is when you look at EXP and our franchisees and proper business owners, for want of a better phrase, as long as you can own it, but your team's got to own it. And I think that you'll get a better result when everybody's collectively responsible for the result and the outcome for the customer. And that's where EXP win because it's individual. That's where our business owners win because it's their business and their team, and it makes it important to them. So yeah, I think that's it really. You've got 5-6 weeks to smash it and then keep it.
Well, on that note, I can't add any more. So, Rob, exceptional as always. We'll probably see you throughout sometime in the summer. I look forward to catching up with you soon because I know you live quite close to me in Grant. So, if you're ever up at the PVS studios, give me a shout. We'll have a cup of coffee. But more importantly, thank you for watching the Stat Show. Well, we'll leave you in peace. Thank you very much.
Cheers, bye.